Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show tonight. I am John Kurtz. We've got the big news that everybody's been waiting for so long. The House settlement has finally been approved. All right. Judge Wilkin made that decision over the weekend. And now what? That's the question. Now what? This finally happened. We've been talking about it for a while. Everybody has, in essence, known that this is coming. So now that it's here, what does it mean? How is everybody reacting? Well, I can tell you, judging by a lot of the anonymous quotes that we're seeing out there from administrators, coaches, etc., in college sports, a lot of people are freaking out. How is it going to affect the Big 12 specifically and conferences outside of the Power 2, which you know is a big focus here on this channel? That's why I focused the title of the video tonight in on BYU and Texas Tech, because I think they are the most interesting cases in the Big 12 of how this House settlement is going to wind up affecting everybody. They are the big spenders. They have made massive splashes, BYU in basketball, Texas Tech in football, with their NIL spending lately. So what's this going to mean for them? Beyond that, we have a very interesting, I think, honestly, to me, because the House settlement thing has been something we've known was going to be here for a long time, the more interesting story tonight is what is happening with everybody's favorite, our Sith Lord, Greg Sankey. All hail, Lord Sankey. He is meeting with somebody quite important, along with the athletic director at Notre Dame. So we got to get to that. Remember, I told you a while back, it sure seems like the SEC and company, they're a little bit scared of Cody Campbell and what might be happening there with everybody's favorite Texas Tech Red Raider. We're definitely going to have to talk about that story later on. Plus, man, we got a definitive, I guess, ranking of Tier 1 schools in the Big 12. So only 2 Big 12 schools made Tier 1 in all of college football, by one of the most popular entities that is out there when it comes to college football. I will show you how that syncs up or doesn't with the list that I put out of the Big 12's best programs not all that long ago. So appreciate everybody for being here. You guys know the drill. If you are here, fill up the chat. If you want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show tonight, click the $ below the chat box. That's how you can submit a super chat and attach your donation. Appreciate everybody who does that. It's a way to guarantee that you're a part of the convo tonight. But you can also do that on Venmo, even if you are not here. If you want to still be a part of the convo and you are not here, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo is how you can do that. And I've got a couple of Venmo, questions and comments to get to here to kick off the show in just a moment. But totally free ways to support the channel as well. Just like the video, just comment. Just like the video, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Totally free. Helps with the channel, helps more people see this, and I genuinely appreciate that. Also, if you are a fan of my content and what I do, make sure to subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com or by clicking the link in the description of this video. We've got 4,400 Big 12 fan subscribers. You're getting it straight to your inbox twice a week, and big stories like this I will take and break down so that you know how it affects the Big 12. Plus, everything that you need to know about the league, I give you the bullet points twice a week for free to your inbox. So make sure that you get subscribed. Okay. Appreciate everybody, especially those of you who are following along on Venmo. And why did I lose? You know what? This is where I get really frustrated with myself. I had this all pulled up and ready to go, and then I changed the tab to something else. My fault, everybody. Clint, we're going to start with Clint here. Clint, I appreciate your support as always, my friend. Thank you. Clint says, hi, John. Great content. I support your mark with the 5-11. So this is back to the last live show. Brett Yormark pushing the 5+11 format for the college football playoff with 11 at-larges. Clint says Big 12 seems up and coming. Trump and Stanky, ? All right. Clint just blew the lid on it. We're going to talk about that later. Yes, they are meeting. The Big Ten is the problem. Hardly 4 deep. SEC is easily. Anyone looked into how many Big 12 teams have finished in the top 16 in each of the last 10 years, counting Utah? Go BYU. Well, thank you, Clint. Yes, that was actually in the last live video. That was where the Big 12 would have had on average 2.4 teams in the top 16, and that was with conference realignment accounted for, so you're not getting credit for Oklahoma or Texas, for instance. Big 12 is at 2.4. I think the ACC was like right at an even 2. So the Big 12 did have an advantage on the ACC as far as that goes. So hopefully that answers your question there, Clint. That's pretty easy. Clint's on board, and it seems like, BYU fans seem to be pretty on board in general with the 5+11 plan here from your mark. And really, it's not so much about the format. It's just about not codifying, not solidifying that you are half the conference of the Big Ten and the SEC, which is what you would be doing by signing on the dotted line for the 4 auto bid, 2 auto bid plan. And it was interesting. One BYU fan friend of mine was mentioning to me, like, hey, this was kind of like BYU staying independent, not joining the Mountain West. It was like, yeah, there are some disadvantages there. You can't take advantage of the group of 5 automatic spot in the playoff or whatever, but or I guess back then, New Year's 6. But we're better than a Mountain West program, and we're not like writing that into stone. There's a stigma that comes with that. We don't want to do that, and it worked out. Eventually, we got in the Big 12. We got into a power conference. Bada bing, bada boom. I was like, that makes sense. Actually, the BYU fans would have more of that perspective because of how that worked out for them. And it is really kind of the same idea. Like, there's a real stigma attached to that. And that's where I think it's easier for like a Joel Klatt or a Josh Pate to say, and I'm going to say that they don't have a real stake in the game. I understand that Joel Klatt went to Colorado, but he is now, lead analyst at Fox. Excellent what he does, by the way. But does not have near as much a stake in it as I think like an active Big 12 fan, Brett Yormark, a Big 12 administrator, whatever. You can't put that stigma on yourself of being, in BYU's case, a Mountain West team, or here, in this case, being literally half the league that the SEC or Big 10 are. You can't do that. So it's just a non-starter. It has nothing to do with format. It has nothing to do with this being a better way to get more teams in the playoff. Clearly, it is not. But I think we all understand what it actually is. So my 2 cents on that. We had one other. Let me get to the other Venmo comment. Thank you again, though, Clint. Joe, what's up, Joe? Appreciate you very much, Joe. So Joe says, hey, John, missed the live, but talking on the last subject, if the auto bid would happen, could the Big 12 and ACC do a model like Joel suggested, 2.5 versus 2.5 bids, and the last possible Big 12 team versus the last possible ACC team for the playoff spot? I think that would be an exciting way to end the season, which last year would have been BYU, Miami for a playoff spot, would have drawn a lot of eyes for both conferences. That is something that I have seen people suggest, right? So you've got, the 2.5 plan. I talked about that a little bit on the last show. It would basically be like, hey, if instead of pushing 5+11, if the ACC and Big 12 pushed, how about you guys do a 4-4, 2.5 bid plan format for the playoff? And what that would mean is you'd get 2 each for the Big 12 and ACC, and then a 5th from those 2 conferences, right? 1 additional, depending on who is the better team there. And to find that, you could have a play-in game of sorts between the 3rd best team in the ACC and the 3rd best team in the Big 12. That's an idea that someone pitched. The SEC is doing the same type of thing, right? If they get the 4 auto bids, SEC and Big 10 would be having games 3v6, 4v5. So it could be played the same way on that last weekend the conference championship weekend, right? That sounds awesome. Watching BYU and Miami play for a playoff spot last year, that would be great. Again, I think all of that is like, it sounds great. And there is a piece of that would be awesome if we had that every year. And if you were willing to codify yourself as literally half the program or half the conference rather of the SEC or Big 10, then it's great. It's a great idea. Unfortunately, that does require you to do that. But I'm with you. Like, that does sound great. Just from a viewership standpoint, I'm like, I'm interested. Would have loved to have seen that game last year. Would love to know what would have actually happened in that game last year. And it certainly beats a 4-2. It's better than that, getting more. Would you be able to negotiate that? I don't know, but that does seem like somewhat of a compromise of sorts. So it's a good idea, Joe. And I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, because I had seen that discussed on Twitter, but I didn't discuss that part on the actual show last time, the idea of having a playing game between Big 12 and ACC there. Okay. Let's get to the House settlement, everybody. It's here. A California judge on Friday night. Great Friday night news dump at about 8 o'clock Central Time. Dumped, okay, we have settled the House case here. And the real implications of this as it relates to the Big 12 are, is it going to make the rest of the league more competitive on a national landscape? And what about the big spenders, Texas Tech and BYU? Are they now screwed? They're losing their big advantage. Those are the biggest questions as it relates to the Big 12. So let's dive into this. If you are just looking for like a Cliff Notes here, I know a lot of people, your eyes kind of glaze over when you hear House settlement and lawsuits and all this. To be honest with you, my eyes do the same. I just literally kind of have to follow all of this. Here's what it does. One piece of this, no one really talks about this, but it is good for former student athletes. They're a part of a class action. I mean, this is a class action case, so they're going to get $2.8 billion in back pay. So $2.8 billion will be paid out to a bunch of former student athletes. Then we immediately go into schools are allowed to directly revenue share with student athletes. It will be a percentage of the annual revenue, which this year is $20.5 million. I believe it is 22%, I think is the percentage every year. So it'll increase as more revenue gets made, but this year it's $20.5 million. That's your revenue sharing cap. And you can think about that. If you want table stakes to be a major player in college football or college basketball, you need to come up with $20.5 million every single year to share with your student athletes. We also get a new enforcement entity that has been created here with this. It's called the College Sports Commission. And then Deloitte is going to be able to police booster-backed NIL payments that have to be fair market value. All of that included here in the House settlement. So these are all things that we have been talking about because everybody's known this has been coming. Like the best analogy I could think of for this was like, it's like if you're in a car crash and you kind of start to see things in slow motion, like you can tell, oh man, all right, well, I'm about to hit this car. Like I'm about to rear in this car. It's in slow motion. It feels like it takes forever because life just slows down for you. And we've been waiting, just like, all right, this is going to be a big thing. Let's just have it happen. Well, now it finally happened. Impact happened at 8 o'clock Central Time on Friday night. So now you've got to get out, clear the wreckage, see what this means, see what the consequences are from this, see what is going to result from this. Because there are key questions here. We don't really know how exactly this is going to go down. The big question that is on the mind of most, and why you're seeing a bunch of panicky quotes out there that I'll read to you in just a moment. The big question is, how seriously will Deloitte actually be able to adjudicate fair market value? Like how supposedly any NIL deal over $600 that's not a revenue sharing deal. So anything that would come from a collective, which right now is a free for all, a donor can just write a $4 million check, give it to a player, doesn't matter. Now, if you're going to do that, Deloitte would come in and say, all right, well, it's $4 million fair market value for whatever it is that you're going to have this student athlete do, which that's something else. It would have to be an exchange there, like sign some autographs or something. Is that worth $4 million? Probably not. If you're asking me, John, how will, like logistically, how would all of this even go? Well, Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports does have an answer for that. He gives the example, Deloitte may deem a submitted $100,000 deal between an athlete and third party to actually be valued at $50,000. The player can alter the deal to align with the clearinghouse suggested figure, or the school can cover the difference by accepting a reduction. Okay, so the school could cover the difference with the rev share cap. So either you got to alter the deal and just say, all right, fine, I'll just take 50 grand instead of 100 grand, or the school has to chip in, but then it counts against the rev share cap. Deals rejected for a second time. So first time you can appeal here. Second time they get referred to the CEO and enforcement staff. They're then processed through an appeal system via court overseen arbitration, and you'll get a ruling within 45 days. But if you appeal it for a second time and you lose, you still take the money, then you're ineligible. That's, in theory, how this will work. In practice, that's the question people have. In practice, how will this actually work? because so many are saying, dude, like, come on. You're really going to tell this multimillionaire donor that he can't give that money, that you are going to get sued into oblivion. That's what the anticipation is right now. This is going to lead to a bunch of lawsuits over this, that you can't actually legally limit how much a player could make in trying to determine fair market value, which is why there's this whole other piece going on right now in Congress and perhaps with the president, where leaders in the NCAA are trying to make it so that can't be something, like everything gets codified in terms of not being able to, well, in the settlement, everything gets codified and you can't come in and just sue every little thing like that. That is what they are seeking. That's not there right now. So we may just be headed for more lawsuits and more confusion and all of that. But in theory, that's how this would work. So in theory, if it does go like that, that can be a bad thing for Texas Tech and BYU, right? This could be a day that you look back on and say, man, well, this was a really bad day for the trajectory of Texas Tech football and BYU football and basketball, whatever it might be. Texas Tech basketball too. I should definitely include men's basketball in that, because men's basketball, out of this rev share number, if you're giving 90% to football, which most are, then you're left with $2 to $4 million for men's basketball. I mean, right now, you're definitely $10+ million to be really competitive at a top 25 level in college hoops for your roster. So this gets tough. You can see how this gets tough. And the idea, if it is all really enforced, if there are legitimate teeth to Deloitte's ability to enforce all of this, that it does kind of make everybody even, right? I mean, it's more or less operating with a salary cap, unless you can get really creative with a bunch of your NIL deals. And, Lord knows, schools are going to look for every single way that they can do that. But that's also where this other third-party entity comes in. They can look at, hey, our team's trying to circumvent the cap. That's in this settlement, that's the type of thing they would look after. Disagreement on how much they would actually be able to bring the hammer down on schools. But for Texas Tech, right? Tech has a $40 million football roster this season. That was that a CBS article? They did the $40 million club, and Texas Tech was one of those schools in there. So their guy, Cody Campbell, has put up his money, and they have gone out and taken just about every player of significance, it felt like, in the transfer portal to beef up this roster. Well, they did that, and Campbell even said it at the time, like, hey, we wanted to make sure we pounced now because we weren't sure how that's going to go with the House settlement. Well, the House settlement's here, so now we get to find out. But if they really enforce all this, it becomes much tougher for Cody Campbell to just bankroll a monster roster like that. And then you've lost a competitive advantage, certainly relative to your Big 12 peers. Maybe not quite as much at the tip top of the sport. Although their number one transfer portal class would certainly indicate they can compete with anybody as far as that goes. I mean, same with BYU. They're in the game for AJ DeBonsta. They're putting together a really impressive overall men's basketball roster for this upcoming year. And we know that BYU, with the connections of the LDS Church, such a global, nationwide and worldwide fan base, you can have a lot of options in there. You can have a lot of people that can pump in a lot of money if they really want to. You've got a built-in advantage over a lot of schools across the country, but certainly a lot of schools in the Big 12, your peers in this conference. So how much is that really going to hurt you now if this is actually enforced? There's also a part, I think, of both schools that would have to sort of say, like, long-term, could we have really kept up with that arms race at like the tip top of the sport? But that's kind of what everybody is asking right now. What happens after 10 years of this, and if table stakes to just even be in the game at the top of the sport is like a $40 million football roster? How much donor fatigue are you going to have over 10 years if you've hired a bad coach and all that money's been pumped into a bunch of 5 and 7 seasons, right? Like, where do things start to go from there? That may not be in everybody's best interest anyway. But for now, I can understand how a Tech or a BYU fan would be looking at this like, damn, I'm not sure if this is great. I'm not sure if this is great news for us. There are a lot of unintended consequences that could come from this. People are very afraid that this will lead to a return to under the table bags of cash, party like it's 2019 and you're an SEC student athlete just getting a paper bag full of cash at your locker There is a concern and a thought that that's where we would be going back to, because I mean, teams are going to find a way to push the envelope somehow, some way. They're going to push the envelope as much as they can. We see it all across the sport right now. Look no further than, again, like Greg Sankey talked about it last time. They're trying to sneak ESPN FPI in there to be a reason to pick playoff team. Like, what? They'll stoop to anything. They're floating trial balloons of like, we'll use TV ratings to determine which conference gets more playoff bids and all this stuff. Like, everybody is going to be angling for something, and they will stop at nothing to figure it out. So people will definitely try to figure out how to circumvent the cap. We're just going to have to see what happens. How many lawsuits come out of this? What can happen in Congress by the time lawsuits start getting there? Can they figure anything out? I am certainly pessimistic on like something tangible getting done before it does just turn into a bunch of lawsuits and we're just still waiting and not exactly knowing how all this is going to go. Like, we already saw an example of what this could be. If there are lawsuits, and the lawsuits being over the fair market value piece of this, lawsuits being over like Title IX, there are a lot of ways that this could get brought up. And if you are just like waiting on a judge's decision on something, it makes it really hard to know how to operate if you're a school. Like this happened with the roster limits. That is another part of the settlement. I failed to mention that earlier, but you have certain roster limits, scholarship limits. And for football, it was all of a sudden cut to 105, and teams were not going to be able to hold on to walk-ons the way that they had before. If your roster may have been like 130 with a bunch of walk-ons, now you got to get down to 105. And so that was what was originally proposed, but then it was, the judge didn't really like it. No one was exactly sure how that was going to go down, but the transfer portal deadline was coming up, so coaches had to just cut players to give them a chance to hop in the portal. And then it came back that they said, oh, wait, we can grandfather in the roster limits. So then you didn't actually have to, but a lot of schools had already cut a bunch of these guys free. That's an example of like what this could be. Like, people will be like, what do we do? We've got to take action, but we don't really know what the end result's going to be here. This is how this could all turn into a mess very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. Here's a little bit more context from Ross Dellinger. He says, with its approval, the settlement ushers into college sports a more professionalized framework, but one that many believe is ripe for legal scrutiny. Already, attorneys are gearing up for future legal challenges over, at the very least, the new NIL clearinghouse, Title IX, and the capped compensation system. Now, he says much of this could be resolved with a collective bargaining and or employment model that college executives have so far avoided. And they definitely want to avoid this. Cody Campbell wants to avoid it. Greg Sankey wants to avoid it. Anybody that you hear talk about high up the food chain in college athletics, they do not want to go that route. So that's what they're trying to get congressional help with. They don't want to have to go that way. Dellinger says on that front, step 2 may even be more difficult. Lawmakers producing a congressional bill to codify the settlement terms and protect the NCAA and power conferences from legal challenges over enforcement of their rules. 5 U.S. senators have been meeting regularly in serious negotiations over legislation, but no agreement has been reached. So, yeah, that's a pretty good overview of where things are at right now. Now, how are people reacting to this? With a bunch of panic. And I will get to more on that in just a moment. As you file in here, a lot of people have, since the last time I gave the housekeeping list here. Please do like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Would really, really appreciate that. All of you on Twitter, just hop over. John Kurtz on YouTube. Just click subscribe, click like. You can still watch it on Twitter. That's fine. And subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. Multiple times a week, straight to your inbox, totally for free. 4,400 plus Big 12 fan subscribers. I appreciate everybody who does that as well. And you can click the $ below the chat box if you want to submit a super chat like my guy Scott. Thank you for being here, Scott. I appreciate you, my friend. Scott says, won't we be getting the same 2 to 3 star guys in the Big 12 as we get today, no matter how much money we can make? Well, it's all relative, right? Like, if you're Texas Tech and you're going to throw $40 million at a roster like they have with Cody Campbell, well, they landed the number 1 portal class in the country. So that literally did upgrade the Big 12's talent through short-term use of huge money. So it can change. If you're saying over the course of time, would you be able to compete on that sort of scale? It does get trickier. And if everything does kind of normalize, like this is in effect a salary cap, there is teeth to Deloitte. Somehow they're able to stop teams from really circumventing the cap, then it would kind of maybe just go back to like what it was recruiting 10 years ago. Power schools will still have the advantages because of whatever it is, coach, conference. They'll still have those same advantages, but it won't be so much monetary. And then maybe you're right. Maybe then it does sort of even out and you're still just like recruiting the same kind of guys. And this actually is taken away a bit of a way to try and up your personal profile, like Texas Tech is really going gung-ho after right now. So it could be, but I would say, Scott, that it's really just an individual basis, and this would kind of remove, in some ways you can look at that and say, well, Texas Tech would then lose the ability to really out-recruit, say, Oregon, because they can't just throw more money at it than Oregon. Now, if everything's equal, like Oregon's probably going to win that deal. Tech has done some. Tech also built beautiful facilities. That's certainly going to help, even if it does come back to being a little bit more equal like that. But no, I would say actually the unlimited spending has allowed some schools to recruit at a higher clip than they would before. But it's a good question, Scott. I appreciate you. Let's get to the reaction here to the House settlement, okay? Because it has been a little bit hysterical. House settlement comes into play. Yes, there's back pay going to former student athletes, but the focus here, you can now revenue share. Schools can directly with their student athletes starting in July, and it's going to be a $20.5 million cap, revenue sharing cap for this first year. You cannot do more than that. 90% from most schools will go to football, and the rest, 90% to football and men's basketball. I keep saying that wrong. 90% to football and men's basketball, and the rest to everybody else. Any money beyond that, which right now, this year, your top football rosters are costing $40 to $50 million. That's more than 20.5, right? So how does that work if it's actually going to really be enforced that everything is fair market value? If that is the case, football rosters are going to immediately drop by like half in terms of how much they are costing. Is that realistic to actually enforce it and then get enough protection that you can't get sued for it? Those are the two questions there. There does not seem to be a lot of optimism about that if we're judging by the quotes that particularly were in an article in The Athletic by Justin Williams, who used to cover Cincinnati. I think he does a very, very good job. So Big 12 guy out there at the highest level. But got some crazy quotes. Here's one. The top football teams are going to cost $40 to $50 million per year, said one power conference personnel director. That's where this is going. Anyone who thinks different is nuts. You're nuts. You're nuts if you think different. There is somebody I found in particular who thinks different in the Big 12. One Big 12 AD who had a way different tone on this, and I really, really liked it. And I think you'll be surprised when you hear me say who it is, but I will get to that in just a minute. Justin Williams says this cuts directly against the intent of the settlement, which is designed to stamp out the unspoken pay-for-play deals that have hijacked the NIL marketplace and keep ballooning roster budgets in check. Quote, no chance, the personnel director said. No chance. So this is the same guy, but he's saying it's going to cost $40 to $50 million a year. That's where it's going. Anyone who thinks different is nuts. And if you come back and say, well, actually, this really is what the whole point of this is, that it's supposed to limit that, he says, no chance. No chance. Here's a power conference football coach, head coach. Quote, we're all just trying to figure it out as we go through it. The whole deal is to make it a level playing field, but I don't think that will ever be realistic. Well, if we want to get into semantics, I mean, there will never be a legitimate equal playing field in college football. Like, someone will have advantages, whether it's paying people under the table or whether it's, hey, we're Alabama, we have all this history and tradition, and or we're Oregon, we have these facilities and the Nike stuff. It will never be a totally equal playing field. But if you want it to be a more equal playing field, I mean, it could be that. It could certainly be that. This maybe is the best quote of this whole thing. Quote, if you tell a booster or business owner they can't give a star player $2 million, there will be lawsuits. There's no enforcing this. Fair market value, bleep Deloitte. That's a word that starts with an F. bleep Deloitte. This is going to get even crazier. Well, again, the part where it gets really crazy is if Congress doesn't act fast, and if there are then lawsuits, whenever the first deal comes across where it's like, hey, donor X wants to give player Y $1 million. And to, you would now have to throw something on that to sign some autographs, whatever. Be out there at the car dealership and sign some autographs. Well, then Deloitte could come back and say, no, the fair market value, I mean, that's worth like 50 grand. So if you want 50 grand, take it or leave it. Then you're going to have a really upset multimillionaire, billionaire booster that's going to be like, well, you're telling me what to do with my money? Like, you can't do that. I mean, these are guys, you are talking about messing with like rich people who they have a lot of money to go to court. They have a lot of money to hire great representation. And they typically don't like being told what to do with their money. And I saw someone made a good point. Like, some of these people would be in the class of like, hey, maybe not quite enough money to go like buy a professional sports team or something, but this is the thing that they can do. It's not directly like buying your college football team, but it's pretty close. I mean, you're bankrolling things and you can get a lot of say in what's actually happening if you've got that type of money. Those are not the people that are going to want to be pushed around. So they're definitely going to be lawyering up. And that's where the only pushback I would have on this quote is I would just say, well, if Congress or the president were to step in and do something, then you might actually have to relinquish some of this and be like, okay, I guess there is legitimate enforcement power here from the NCAA. Here's more from Justin Williams. Says a legit enforcement arm with some teeth, perhaps in the form of suspensions or ineligibility, which, yes, again, supposedly ineligibility, absolutely on the table there, according to Ross Dellinger. That might change that sentiment. And multiple athletic directors suggest that if the clearinghouse merely serves as even a minor deterrent to egregious pay-for-play payments, it will be better than pre-settlement circumstances. So some admins are saying if this even just slows it down a little bit, provides some extra barriers to do this instead of what it is right now, that will be better than where we're at. So we might as well at least give this a shot. Williams says, but others think that the undertow of NIL and collectives is too strong to turn back now. Yeah, I mean, I get basically what you have here is it seems like your administrators are trying very hard to push optimism here because they're feeling the stress of this. They're feeling the stress of coming up already with $20.5 million per year for revenue sharing. And like anything beyond that, I mean, it's a really tall task. You heard Jamie Pollard, something I've referenced on this show many times, Iowa State athletic director, saying like, we'll have to get a student fee or we will have to be subsidized by the university. Like, if we're going to do this every year, they're already stressed to the max about that. So thinking that this whole thing, when the point was to try and get away from these crazy pay-for-play deals, if they're going to come out and say right now, be pessimistic on the day that it's actually approved by the judge and just be like, well, yeah, I don't know, it may be tough to enforce this. That's a stance they can't really have. They have to have optimism. They have to be the ones trying to push some legitimate confidence about this thing. And that's why you're seeing that from them. Whereas people more down in the weeds of the sport, coaches, personnel directors, whatever, you can see why they would probably be a little bit more cynical about it. Like, hey, man, we see everybody bending the rules. We know what goes on. We know everybody trying to circumvent whatever they can. There's just absolutely no chance. Let's see. One last note here. Okay. How about this note from Justin? I just said everybody's looking for every last dime they can squeeze out of something. Remember the All-State 12, almost naming rights deal for the Big 12 there? Justin says, as far as individual schools go, there could be new revenue streams from things like on-field logos or naming rights. Long-term, departments might get creative, whether that's an in-stadium restaurant that's open year-round, purchasing its own housing complexes for athletes, or inviting private equity. Now, there was a story, and I know that I didn't talk about this when it happened. frankly, because I didn't see it until after I got done doing, I think it was like the midweek show last week, or maybe it was last Sunday. There was a private equity story about the Big 12 where Yormark had a quote that was kind of like, we've let it go for now. I am not reading very much into that at all. The way the quote read, it very much came across to me like, yeah, I mean, we're not going to do it like right this second because I don't have the approval for it. But especially as we move forward and if teams like schools start feeling the stress of what Jamie Pollard is talking about there, like I think it's just going to become an inevitability and a reality. And also, you got the SEC working with Goldman Sachs right now. If they pull the trigger on it, I mean, you're just going to have to do it to even come remotely close to keeping up. So I still think that's very, very much out there and very, very much on the table for the Big 12, just because of the reality of the situation. Even if you don't right now have all the presidents on board, I mean, it will take total feet held to the fire. You're going to have to be in a position where you will absolutely, absolutely have to do it if you're going to get approval for it. That's not something anybody's going to go for just very, very casually. I do want to close with this because I just read you all these like hysterical statements, right? People very cynical, projecting a lot of pessimism about any real legitimate enforcement arm. I will say, I mean, this is pretty common among like more of the admin stance and tenor in light of the House settlement. But I did like this from Travis Goff of Kansas, the AD here. Now, I say like the tenor, you've just seen ADs want to be more optimistic about this, as I just outlined to you why. But also I was watching like all the athletic departments, all the official, K-State sports, Baylor sports, whatever, Baylor athletics accounts. They're all pushing out these pre-crafted statements that all seem up to, hey, we're excited to welcome in a new era, putting on a nice happy face, when it's like, I know behind the scenes, they're all just like, oh boy, this better work. But I liked what Travis Goff had to say here, because I do think there's some level of truth to it, even if he has an incentive to push this kind of message. But he's responding to Justin's story and says, I've never read more dramatic anonymous source quotes than those used in these types of articles. Cut the crap. We griped about the old world, and some are throwing their hands up before we even get started in this next chapter. Like, bingo. That, I think, is a fair point, regardless of whether you're some totally cynical person, regardless of how you really feel about this. That is objectively true. There was a ton of complaining about the way it was before. There's been an attempt here to do something about it. There are ongoing attempts in Congress to do something about it. We don't know how this is going to really go. We don't know what all the reverberations from this will be in different tentacles that come out of this. If you're going to just project a bunch of negativity and like whine about it being pessimistic before it even start, like, what's the point? Like, we got to give it a shot. It's kind of a mess. If you want it to stop being a mess, everybody's got to get on board and at least give this the old college try. No pun intended. So I do agree with Travis Goff on that. And I think his next line, very apropos as well. This settlement is strong. The plan is solid. Hope we can all do our part and give it its best chance. It's pretty well said, man. That's pretty well said. I'm not sitting here saying I'm confident that it's going to work. I don't really know. I have no earthly idea. I think anybody that feels like they know for sure how this is all going to go down is a bit foolish. I think we're going to all have to kind of take this as it comes day by day. But I'm going to at least try to have some cautious optimism about this, okay? Now, on that front, my Project Rudy dreams seem a little bit less optimistic on this. My dreams of Super League with 70 teams reorganizing backed by geography, everybody making a lot more money, the greatness that is Project Rudy, seems further away today because Greg Sankey now has the ear of POTUS, of the President of the United States. So does Pete Bavacqua, who's the athletic director at Notre Dame. Now, is this, though, just all a direct response to Cody Campbell, the Big 12 secret weapon, who has a direct line to Trump himself? I would actually argue it's really another sign, like I told you, that the SEC is pretty damn bothered and concerned and worried about the Big 12 secret weapon, Cody Campbell. So let's get into this part of the story, because this, to me, was actually the most interesting part of the story. House settlement, we knew it was coming. We've all discussed this and had the same really debates around how effective this will be already. We have not talked about this. Okay. So let's go back a month or so now, right? Quick refresher. Cody Campbell, multi-billionaire Texas Tech booster. He gets positioned as the co-chair of the Presidential Commission on College Sports along with Nick Saban. Cody Campbell he's a billionaire, direct line to the president. You can make the connection there. That's, tends to be who he hangs out with. You can see why he's running in the same circles as Donald Trump. So is there then a possibility to get some real help from the president and or Congress to push forward ideas like Project Rudy, which Cody Campbell has essentially argued for? He has written a lot on the Federalist about the future of college sports, and he wants a lot of the same things that Nick Saban and the SEC and Big Ten do. They don't want athletes to be employees. They want to make sure that individual states cannot have different NIL laws to try and produce a competitive advantage for schools in their state. And they want some sort of codifying of the House settlement so that they can't be sued into oblivion all the time. These are things all those guys would agree on. Nick Saban was supposed to be the other co-chair of the Presidential Commission along with Cody Campbell. But where Cody Campbell has taken it a step further in his writing is to say, hey, we need to use the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961 so that everybody will pool together their TV rights. We sell it as one big package like the NFL does. That's going to be the best case for everybody. And that ties right into Project Rudy, which would do that for the top 70 teams. They would keep 70 teams there. The money would still be dispersed unevenly. It would skew toward the better teams that are winning and or have bigger brands, right? But then you would divide the conferences back up by geography, which would also save teams a lot of money and travel. And that's kind of the genesis and the idea there. And I said when that happened, like, this is great. This is great if you're a Big 12 fan. A guy that is friends with Trump, has his ear, is the co-chair of this commission. And then it started to seem like really was like the chair of the commission. Yes, we might have a shot here. But I also said the SEC and Big Ten are going to hate this. Like, they're going to hate that. They don't want the Big 12 has gotten too close for comfort now in terms of like where actual power could come down in all of this. And it looks like I was right. Because immediately Nick Saban started to backpedal. He's saying publicly, like, oh, we don't actually need a commission. Then the commission does get postponed for now. They're saying because they want to give Congress a chance to actually do something about all this. But now we also have this. Okay. We got reporting today from Ross Dellinger that U.S. President Donald Trump is scheduled to host two of college football's most influential leaders Sunday. So that was today at his golf course in New Jersey. Notre Dame Athletic Director Pete Bavacqua and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey are planning to golf with the president at Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, an invitation extended to them by the White House. The three men are expected to discuss the future of college athletics as Trump explores his involvement in the rapidly changing industry. Boy. As a Big 12 fan, that's one that you read and you're just like, damn. How does this happen? Well, Pete Bavacqua has a history with Trump. Bavacqua used to be high up at the PGA Tour. So his relationship goes back 10 years, according to the reporting in Dellinger's article. And he's bringing Greg Sankey along, who is, I think it's inarguable, the most powerful man in college athletics right now. So they're there. And the scary part here is that, well, look, for one, do I think that this is all like a direct response just because Cody Campbell was involved on that presidential commission? It's like, hey, we got to go to. I think the timing tells you that some of this is about the House settlement and they have huge fish to fry. I knocked out all those things everybody seems to agree on. They don't want athletes to be employees. They want to rush and get Congress to codify this thing so they cannot be sued all over the place. Those things are obviously very pressing issues, but it sure seems like the intensity is turned up on what the SEC has been trying to do ever since it was like, oh, hey, President Trump likes Cody Campbell. He's going to be a co-lead of this commission on college sports. And he's a guy that's got some ideas that may be better for the overall sport, but not as good for the SEC or the Big Ten. It does seem like they've been making moves to try and stave some of that off. And I'm not going to lie. This is a good one. because this really seems like throwing some real weight around. This is a line from Ross Dellinger's story. Quote, "The significance of the meeting cannot be overstated." That is a direct quote from Ross Dellinger, from my money, the most informed guy in college sports. The significance of the meeting cannot be overstated. So it is a big deal. It is a big deal. Now, a lot of the reason I'm sure for that statement is because of what it can do just big picture for the sport and all of these different things that need to happen for things to start functioning correctly. But it's also like, I don't know, man. With this administration, it's like the second somebody else gets POTUS's ear, you got to worry about what's going to happen, and what could just snap decision happen like that. You want to be constantly in his ear. My hope is like Cody Campbell shooting some text messages out there too. Like, hey man, you want to FaceTime tonight? Like, hit me up. You want to hop on Call of Duty or NCAA or something and chat while we're doing it? Like, do something. Get back out there, because now this commission has been tabled. Things are happening. House settlement happens. Sankey is not the one we need developing a real strong relationship there right now. Okay. It's just so unpredictable. And this is why, like, it just seems like frankly, in some ways, kind of a perfect match, right? It's college sports is pretty chaotic right now. Lots of decisions being made. Some can be made on a whim. Some can change. Some can flip-flop. That's sort of what we have right now with the administration. And so it's just hard to know where all this is going to end up. It's hard to know who will wind up being more influential than others. It's hard to know how good and or bad this will be for schools that are outside of the Big Ten or the SEC, or frankly, just schools that are not one of the top 10 to 15 brands in the sport. Here's one other paragraph that came in from Dellinger on what supposedly would be some of the focus of this meeting. It says they seek legislation that deems athletes students, not employees. There you go. There's pillar number one we talked about earlier. It preempts state NIL laws. There you go. Bingo. Had that earlier. They want to make sure it's just a uniform rule there. You can't have states jockeying for how much they can tinker with their laws to help the schools in state. And they want protection for the NCAA and power conferences to enforce rules without legal challenges. Again, codify the House settlement, allow it to block us getting sued into oblivion by people coming after Title IX, people coming after compensation limits, all of that stuff. Dellinger also pointed out next week, the 13th congressional hearing related to college sports will unfold. That is pretty crazy. 13th congressional hearing. This one from members of a subgroup of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. A new House bill is expected to be introduced next week as well. Okay, there you go. New House bill expected to be introduced next week. So great news for all of you who are sick, absolutely sick of having lawsuits and like things tied up in court and like, you know, what's going on in Congress, all these. It's just going to combine together with a bill, and we're going to have to wait it out and see what happens there with, you know, people in Congress who clearly can't agree on anything or ever get much of anything done. So I don't know. It's June. We're getting actually like halfway close now to like the season being here. I do desperately just want to, like, can we talk about who's got the most explosive skill position players in the country or conference or whatever, something like that. It's wild how different this is than it was 10 years ago. You know, I was doing a radio show regularly 10 years ago, started like in 2014 as main host there. And it's like, man, the stuff we were talking about in the summer then, so different. Hey, does this linebacking core match up with the 1998 K-State linebacking core? Boy, that is not a topic anymore. We are taking much different content head on. Anyway, I do have one last topic tonight. I'm going to get to it after some super chats, but there is one last topic tonight that I do promise is a little more conventional like that, like something that could have been discussed on a show 10 years ago. But first, Alan, what's up, Alan? Great to see you. Thank you for being here, Alan. Alan says, John, can you list the Big 12 games versus the SEC and Big 10? We should make a John Kurtz subscribers challenge bet with Josh Bate and Paul Feinbaum subscribers. Well, the problem there is we'd have to get a lot more. We need to get more Big 12 fans involved. But if you can make it happen, Alan, I will definitely I will definitely try. I would love to see how that goes. I think you or someone has asked me this before. I don't have it like offhand. I mean, I guess I could pull up maybe the Big 12. I can tell you that Oklahoma State's playing Oregon. I know that that's happening. There's a Mississippi State in there. So are they playing Arizona State again? There are not a lot of great matchups, Alan, is the point. There's, at least with the SEC, there's not a ton. Arizona State is going to go to Starkville to play Mississippi State, who was not very good last year. That's another one. Maybe the chat can help out with some of this too, because I don't know that me pulling up the Big 12 Masters schedule. Big 12 Masters schedule 2025. Oh, it's written so small and I can't zoom in. This is brutal. Felt like Baylor maybe had somebody. Baylor's got Auburn. That's right. Baylor's got Auburn. Baylor, Auburn, Oklahoma State, Oregon, Mississippi State, Arizona State. There's a couple. So, you know, I mean, obviously the biggest opportunity that you're going to have is Oklahoma State. But I you know, anyone feeling confident, no offense, Pokes, but anybody feeling confident in the Pokes right now, taking on Oregon? Because I'm not feeling overly great about that, but we'll see. Hey, Mike Gundy, I would love for you to surprise me with that. Would love for you to surprise me with that. I'm reading the John Kurtz subscribers challenge as I'm trying to say that. Creative idea for sure, Alan. Bigger platforms, bigger conferences, be outnumbered, but you know, hey, that doesn't always mean that you're going to lose. Appreciate you, Alan. Thank you for being here, my friend. Reese, what's going on, Reese? Reese, thank you for your generous support. Reese says, congrats to Texas Tech for making the softball title game. There are 3 Big 12 schools with teams that have reached the men's Final Four, women's Final Four, men's College World Series, and women's College World Series at least once. Can you name them? Oh, boy, some trivia. Well, Texas Tech, I assume, is going to be one of them, since you have said that. I'm thinking baseball here. I'm trying to think like who's been good at baseball. I feel like Arizona is probably another one of those schools, Reese. Congratulations, by the way, to Arizona getting to the College World Series. Coming back after getting destroyed in their first game against North Carolina. Arizona, who else would have the baseball program to do this? Like, would Houston? I don't know. I'm just thinking Texas. Boy. Colorado and Iowa State probably out because of their baseball programs. I'll give you Arizona, Reese. I'm not going to waste everybody's time here by me stammering around like an idiot because I can't come up with a better answer for you on this. But I'll say Arizona and Texas Tech are probably 2 of them, right? And if you're here, Reese, let me know. Thank you, Reese. Texas Tech, Baylor, Arizona. Baylor, damn, you know, Baylor was actually the first one that popped into my mind, Reese. But I was like, you know, Baylor baseball has been pretty good. I did K-State baseball games for 7 years there from 14 to 21. And I was like, but, you know, Baylor was pretty good, but they weren't top flight. And so then I started thinking TCU. That's like the basketball thing is a problem there. So, yeah, okay, Baylor, Arizona. If I would have just gone with my gut, I would have had that whole answer. It's a good question, Reese. I like that. It'd be fun to do just like a straight Big 12 trivia show sometime. David, what's going on, David? Appreciate you. Thank you for your support. David says, John, I think the top of the ACC and a big chunk of the Big 12 need to create a new third conference or the Big 10 and SEC move on without most everyone else. Current Big 12 ACC can't keep pace. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know that combining the two helps you keep pace much better either, but it is something that could happen. And in effect, I mean, this is why you got a lot of people kind of advocating right now for like, hey, you guys should really just link up and have somewhat of an alliance. I know not the alliance. But you're going to have one or the other probably happen in some form or fashion, that they will create some kind of merged conference in 2030, or the SEC and Big Ten will just move off and do their own thing, or somehow the dream comes true and you get like a Project Rudy that's going to be a more all-encompassing Super League. But I do think some of what you're pitching there is inevitable, David. The problem is like there are strength in numbers in some things if you have those two conferences come together, but a TV contract is the biggest key here, biggest way to make more money. I don't think you're going to get much more from a TV deal if you're combining the two leagues, or, even cherry picking the best that get left behind in the ACC that don't go to the Big Ten or SEC. If that's the way it's going to go, it's probably not adding much to a TV deal. You're still going to be considerably behind for sure. Okay. Last thing for you guys. Let's get back to a little bit more normalcy here for what would happen in June. Look, according to one of the biggest college football entities out there, one of the most popular college football entities out there, there are two Big 12 football programs in the top tier of college football. I repeat, there are two Big 12 football programs. I'm saying programs, not teams this year, but programs that are in the top tier of college football. And if you watched last season and that was all you watched, you would have zero chance to guess who this actually is. You would have zero chance to guess who this actually is. So, okay. By the way, like the video, please. Subscribe to the channel. Totally free. Easy ways to support. OFBnews.com to subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter as well. But this is very similar, honestly. I thought of my own personal Big 12 program rankings that I did just a couple of months ago for you guys when I saw this come across the good old Twitter timeline. My program rankings that I did were based on the following criteria. So I said, all right, I'm looking at consistency in the last decade. I'm looking at what I think your next 1 to 2 years, like your outlook for the next year or two, is going to be. I'm looking at the caliber of your head coach. I think that matters in terms of program strength, quite obviously. And a huge one now is NIL support. You've got to have good NIL support, at least not subpar NIL support, for me to feel good about your program. I had another category that was kind of like other, some tradition beyond 10 years, location, etc. There are some other things that could matter. And so my list that I came up with here was BYU, Arizona State. I think we're just on the outside looking in. I had Iowa State at number 5, Oklahoma State at number 4, K-State at number 3, TCU at number 2, and the Utah Utes at number 1. A bit controversial, but to me, really not. Based on consistency over the last 10 years, Hall of Fame head coach, those things really working in favor of the Utes. Well, now we get this from EA Sports. Okay, yes, it's a video game, but this has real ramifications. You can scoff at this if you want, but this actually has ramifications in terms of how much teams are going to get paid for being in NCAA football 26, the new college football video game that I believe I saw is scheduled to come out in about a month. I think it's July 10th. I mean, we had controversy last year in the Big 12 when the rosters first got dropped. There was so much, people were complaining like hell about the Colorado roster, which, it probably was. Even for what Colorado wound up being, it was probably a little overinflated. But I think this is probably going to be the controversy this year because this actually hasn't changed. Both of these teams last year were in the tier 1 for college football. They rank 4 tiers of teams. These teams were both in the tier 1 last year, but then they had horrible years in 2024. So you'd think like, hey, maybe that would change things. It did not. And you guys, that was enough of a hint. If you're any kind of a Big 12 fan at all, you know exactly who I'm talking about here that gets tier 1. Yes, that would be Oklahoma State and Utah. Oklahoma State and Utah are tier 1 schools across all of college football, according to EA Sports. Now, in terms of how much teams are getting paid, there is a bit of a dispute here. Like Brett McMurphy is showing here, hey, tier 1 payout, tier 2, 3, 4. And that is how it was last year. But then I saw other reporting that indicated it was more now based on how much teams are played as, like how often people pick you to play as your school in the game. You'll get paid based off if more people are running to play with Ohio State's going to get more money. If a bunch of people run to play with Utah because they're great and Devin Dampier's really fun halfway through the year, Utah would get a bigger payout. So I have seen some reporting that indicates that's more how it would actually go. But if you're looking at the tiers here, look, it's tough to tell. I know that those logos are a little bit small, but I think you can kind of tell. You can kind of tell there. In tier 2, You got Cincinnati, TCU, Baylor, K-State, UCF, BYU, Houston, West Virginia, Arizona. Look at Arizona jumping up there into tier 2. And again, you might be saying, did you watch Arizona play football last year? Like, how the hell is this happening? Well, it's a good question. Like, hey, what is the actual criteria for this? Again, a little bit of conflicting info on that, but it does look like most of what I was seeing there is like, hey, this is based on AP top 25 finishes the last 10 years. So, like, if you're a Texas Tech fan, you're looking at this going, whoa. We're stuck in tier 4? We're stuck in tier 4? Well, if it's AP top 25 finishes, this is the problem. You're kind of punished more for being a middle of the road program that doesn't have big highs and big lows, as opposed to someone who might have more high highs, but way worse lows than what Tech football has been, where it's been just, a 5-7 to 7-5 program basically for like the last 20 years, but you don't have the high highs to hit your AP top 25s, right? And then you get stuck in tier 4. Here's what it means, Texas Tech fans. If you actually play the game, that means Texas Tech would be a great team to go pick online, because you can pick somebody in your tier and say, I'm only going to play teams from this tier. Go play another tier 4 team with Texas Tech. You'll have a big advantage. Thank me later. But yeah, in terms of a pride thing, I can understand how you look at that and be like, what the hell is this? It is, if it's just AP finishes, it's a more limited way to rank the programs than what I did. So keep that in mind as well. That's going to hurt a school like Iowa State, right? They're tier 3, as opposed to I have them in the top 5 of the Big 12, but they are tier 3 because going back 10 years is going to hurt them more than if it were just the last 5 years. They're doing a lot better. Had a huge high last year, quite obviously. So a more comprehensive picture when you're taking 10 years plus, looking at NIL support, head coach, all of these different things. So I would modestly suggest that you go back and watch the video that I did on my program rankings like a month and a half ago, or you can go back and read the old Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Many of you were subscribers and did get that as well. But a couple final reactions that I have here. I mean, Arizona, and this is where I somewhat contend. Now, I have not done the research on this. I did not go look at like how many top 25 finishes Arizona has in the last 10 years, but I was like, Arizona to tier 2. Are we sure? Did Kevin Sumlin and Rich Rod, I can remember like 1 or 2 years maybe. Was that enough really to get him in tier 2? That's seems like a weird way to do it, but I understand if you're a video game wanting to just have one basic criteria and do it on that, and you can't get too down in the weeds of it all. I mentioned like Texas Tech. That's, that sucks. Arizona State, tier 3. Look, sleeping giant, great head coach who's very young, great team coming back this year. It's kind of like why I had them off my top 5 list. It's like, look, one more season like last year, and they're going to shoot way up. But for now, you do still have to kind of be like, all right, we need to see it again, because there were a lot of years of pretty blah football out of Arizona State. So we need to see it again. Nationally, I think the craziest thing that I saw a lot of people making fun of is like, whoa. Iowa's in tier 1 of this thing. Iowa is in tier 1. What are we doing with Iowa there? Well, this is where being consistently good, not great, definitely helps you out. Like Iowa every year is finishing in the back end of the top 25 every single year. They're not threatening to score a lot of points. They're not threatening to actually win a Big Ten championship. None of that. But every year they're just solid, consistent, good team that's going to finish ranked somewhere between like 18 and 25. So that's how you get up there in tier 1. You would much rather, though, be some of these schools in tier 2, like a Texas, a Tennessee, etc., quite obviously over Iowa. So it's a flawed system. Don't read too much into it. But I thought this was some fun fodder for June, right? And a little more love for Utah and Oklahoma State. I felt bad when I was getting after some SEC homers on Twitter a bit the other day. Was talking about, they were arguing about Arkansas and a result that Arkansas had against Texas Tech. That's right. It was hey, look, Arkansas beat Texas Tech. Like, how good could the Big 12 actually be? And I was like, well, hold on. Arkansas lost to Oklahoma State, who went 3-9 and didn't win a single Big 12 game. And I had some Oklahoma State fans like tweeting me like, hey, man, it sucks that we have to be that. Like, I get it. You're right. But it sucks that we have to be that. So there you go. I'm throwing you a bone, Oklahoma State fans. Celebrate. You are a tier 1 school in college football, according to EA Sports. What could possibly be better than that? Okay. I dare you to find something better than that. Let's close off here with Pacific Northwest Ute. Appreciate you, Pacific Northwest Ute. It says, here's to JK for touting EA. Hashtag tier 1, go Utes. Fear the Dampier. I do like Fear the Dampier. That is a very good moniker. And the mighty Utah student section. Wit send-off. Oh, are we sure? Pacific Northwest Ute, is that the vibe? Like, this is going to be for sure the last year? Last year of Kyle Whittingham at Utah? Okay. All right. Wit send-off. Hashtag wit send-off. Appreciate you for being here, Pacific Northwest Ute. Thank you as always. Thank you to everybody who joined the show tonight, hung out. Appreciate all of you guys. Let's see. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you were not watching this live, you can drop me a line there, question or comment. I'll kick off the next show with it so you can still be a part of the conversation and everything that's happening. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. All of that stuff really helps me and is totally free. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. Oh, boy, Kim, we got to settle this. Oh, my goodness. Kim, you need to take a step back. I like the Red Raiders. Texas Tech has quite literally been about a 6-6 program for the last 15 years. And this was based on top 25 finishes. That's not my criteria. That is the criteria of EA Sports. Texas Tech, I'll pull it up right now, Kim. I'll pull it up right now. How many Texas Tech football year by year? This was me not taking a shot at Tech. This was me not slamming Texas Tech. If you want to get into Texas Tech K-State, I would suggest you don't do that because it's been a couple of country miles of time since Texas Tech has actually beaten K-State. K-State has a Big 12 championship in there as well. AP Post. So Texas Tech has not, Kim, finished ranked in the AP poll, which is the criteria of this list. They have not finished ranked in the AP poll one single time since the year of our Lord, 2009. So in the last 10 years, which is what this list is banking on, it is 0 times that Texas Tech has finished ranked in the top 25, which means they get put in tier 4. That's not my doing. That is EA Sports. I'm simply pointing that fact out, which was a fact when I mentioned it. I don't know why you are so angry at me for this. K-State has won since that 2009 time, by the way, that Tech finished ranked in the AP. K-State's won 2 Big 12 championships, Kim. Okay? You haven't beaten K-State since Patrick Mahomes was your quarterback. We're doing just fine. That was an unnecessary shot, and I didn't need to do that to you or Texas Tech fans, but I have to because you were so sensitive about it, my friend. Can we just be friends and not shoot the messenger on me for EA Sports here? Kim, what was that? What was that, Kim? Man. Kim, I hope Texas Tech wins a lot this year so that we can make you happy. I can see 20 years of pent-up frustration. I'll stop with the 20. 15 years of pent-up frustration there. It's 15, 2009. Yeah, 15, 16. We'll call it 15. Kim, I can see the 15 years of pent-up frustration there. Why stop at 15 years? Well, Kim, we're not having a conversation. Like, what? What do you want me to, like, hey, Byron Hanspard was awesome. Zach Thomas was great. Like, why are we, EA Sports stopped at 10. So that's where we cut it off. I was just pointing out why they were low in EA Sports rankings. We're not trying to have a pissing contest about K-State and Texas Tech here. But if we are, anybody that's under the age of about 35 is going to have a world more success with the history of K-State football. K-State was at one point the worst college football program in America. Very well documented. So congrats, Kim. I hope you enjoyed college football in the 60s. You were much better at it. Whew. Kim, come on. Be better. You can be better than that. Be better. You don't need to be that sensitive. It's okay. Thank you all for being here again. Like, subscribe, comment. All of that stuff is great. ofbnews.com, Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. Appreciate all of you there. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Boy, my computer is about to die, so it's a good thing that we're getting out of here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Have a great start to your week, and I will talk to you all very soon. Take care.